So thank you, everyone, for letting me come and share my adventures in trying to decide what kind of antenna I should keep up. And I did that using Whisper and a couple other little tricks. So what I'm going to show you is really not specific about antennas. This has nothing to do with Don's antennas. This has to do with how you can make a change in your shack, your value chain, and see if it makes a difference in the world of HF, in the world of reception, in the world of propagation. That's what this is about. Making a change and then assessing that change out in the ether. So that's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to use antennas just as a use case, but the technique is identical to doing anything. So when you go to the optometrist, they always say, better or worse, better or worse. And that's the question we all face when we do this. I've made a change. Is it better or is it worse? Right. So the good news, the bad news is I'm not that attractive person on the screen. So I got to tell you this little story about an optometrist. How many optometrists does it take to change a light bulb? One or two? Two or one? One or two? Okay. It's goofy, but it gets to the point of what we're trying to tease. Okay, so forget Don's antennas. They got nothing to do with this. You've made a change. CMC common mode chokes are a big deal now. You put one in. Did it make a difference in your ability to receive or not? Right? You'd like to find that out. You put up an end-fed half-wave antenna. All the rage. Is it really better or worse than the antenna you've got? You've got two end-fed half-waves. You put in a counterpoise on your end-fed half-wave, a very controversial topic. Did it make a difference? And instead of guessing or doing, hey, can you hear me? What's my S report? How about we put some data on that counterpoise, right? How about you change your power level and see if it makes a difference? S1, S9, we all know machines aren't calibrated equivalently. It's a rotten way to make a decision, says Don. So let's see if we can bring some easy to get data to all of these kinds of questions that we're asking. And in some cases, the reason why better or worse is not so much better or worse, but maybe is it worth the money that it costs? So that's another way to look at this. So what are we going to use? Okay, how many of you have used WSJT-X? All right, all of you are contributing to the death of amateur radio. Congratulations. You use that in large part because you're using FT8, right? Or FT4, one of those guys. In that same list, there is a mode called Whisper. And what Whisper does is it sends out just three things, and it does it incredibly slowly. As my good friend Dean says, it's like watching paint die. It's just painful. And it takes 2 minutes to send your grid square, your call sign, and your power level. Now, we all know that power levels, according to different receivers, are all very inaccurate, right? Whisper solved that problem. WSJT-X has solved that problem. Joe Taylor has solved that problem because every Whisper instance uses the same algorithm to figure out your received power level. So that means you can actually start to compare different sites, and you can take the DBM of your received report to the bank. So it's very narrow. And now here's the really important thing. So you're sending out these little Whisper things 2 minutes at a time, la-di-da, so the heck what? Here's the what. Every time anyone receives you, and there are hundreds, I'm exaggerating, maybe thousands, of dedicated Whisper receivers, anytime anyone receives you, they don't put it in their logbook. They don't write it down on a piece of paper. It is automatically sent up to the Whisper database in the sky. They don't do anything except put their little Whisper station in receive mode, allow it to send reports up, and everybody who runs Whisper does this, and all of a sudden you have like a reverse beacon network out there yin-yang. There's thousands of people ready to receive your Whisper 24 hours a day all over the world, and they're ready to receive. There's also a couple Whisper beacons that are always sending out, so you can go both ways. The fact that people who receive you take your signal report and send it up to the cloud, that's the magic. That's what makes what I'm talking about, what you can do now, doable. two kinds of approaches. One is, you can download your own Whisper data and roll your own. That's cool. And I'm a data guy, and I'm telling you, don't do that. Just simply go to all the websites that are designed to help you do this analysis, where in general, you just put in your call sign. Now, there's a little trick here. I'm going to share a trick with you. So here are all the things you can compare, because there's more to a signal than SWR. All of these characteristics are supported in your analysis of, did that counterpoise matter? Is that new receiver better? You got rid of that noisy wall wart that was powering an LED grow lamp in your basement. You got rid of that. Did it matter? So here's all the ways you can evaluate that and get an answer. Okay, so back to WSJT-X. This is the drop down I was talking about. So all of you that have been seduced by this miserable mode here. No, I'm just teasing. No, I like it. It's fine. I got my start with FT8, and I found it incredibly useful as a beginner, because FT8 allowed me to understand that my rig worked. Not just my rig, my computer interface to the rig, my application on my computer, my antenna, all that stuff worked. And I found that out because I used FT8. So I don't mind pulling anybody's chain about FT8, but the fact is I found it incredibly useful. But we're not talking about that. Go down here to Whisper. That's it. And a couple of things you need to know. Forget everything up here, except you only transmit 20% of the time. That's the standard. Why? Because as all good hams, we spend more time listening than transmitting. So 20% is algorithmically the right answer here. You can change it, but leave it alone. Band hopping. If the rest of your antenna system supports it, Whisper will automatically hop the bands, and you decide what bands you want. And here they are, from 2190 meters all the way up to a micrometer, whatever. And you click the ones you want. You click whether you want it. Grayscale day, grayscale night, or if you only want to tune on that band, or if you only want to receive on that band. This is where you control what happens under band switching. So it is very, very cool. This thing here, this is the data. Remember, we said that Whisper sends your call sign, your good square, and your power level, right? How does it know what your rig is sent to? It doesn't. How does it know if you have a final amplifier? It doesn't. You say what your power level is. It's just an honesty self-reporting system. And you do that with that little drop down you saw up there, right there, that says power level. There you go. Right now it says 32 dBm, which is 2 watts. It's a drop-down list. Just pick one. There's no real relationship between what you pick and what you do. And in there's a little trick that you can use this flexibility. Now, most people play it straight. They just simply say whatever their power level is, they come as close as they can get to it on the drop-down list. And that's good, because people will be evaluating. If you want to contribute to the community, tell them what your power level is. And then that allows everybody to do signal analysis, knowing, maybe what you were sending out at. But you can say any darn thing you want. Okay. So, here's the important thing. So the gold standard for making any comparative analytical decision, A versus B, the gold standard is you hold every variable constant except the one thing you're changing. So that would mean if you got 2 antennas, or you got a counterpoise and not, or 2 different NFEDs, or 2 different 4 to 9 to 1 transformers, or 2 different receivers, everything else is the same. You're sending at the same time, for example. That's kind of hard to do when you got to take a counterpoise on and off, right? So we all understand that the gold standard is simultaneous transmit, simultaneous receive with the same gear, except for the one thing you're changing. Well, that's kind of hard to do for us. So in general, that's not going to happen. Some people will actually put 2 Whisper receivers on 2 antennas and let them both just whisper, and then they can evaluate the 2 antennas, because in that case, they are receiving simultaneously. They got the same receivers, they got the same computer. The only thing that's different is the antennas, and they got the same time. So some people do that, but in the main, you're not going to do that. So here's how you're going to solve that. Here's the dealio. How do you make this work? Because you want to make some marker in the data. You've changed something. counterpoise, on or off. You want that in the data, but Whisper only sends three things: your grid, your call, and your power level. There's no text that says, oh, I put on a 9 meter or a 0.05 wavelength counterpoise. Did it make any difference? There's no text in Whisper, none of that. So what do? Here's the answer. Change your call sign. You can do this. So I have some examples of where I've got my call sign. Then I have a slash and the letters DL. I don't remember what that stood for. Oh, dipole low power. When I use my loop antenna, I leave it as blank. If I use my ATU and tune it up, because I was just kind of curious, does an ATU, when it's tuned, help you on the receive side? It's sort of like a pre-band pass selector, right? Okay. Does it matter? Is it effective? So I can find out now. So these are examples: /2, blank, the normal, /NCP. I've forgotten what NCP stood for. /D for dipole. So this is legal. You can do this. So you have your base case, you run Whisper for whatever length of time you want. You change your thing. And as soon as you change your thing, you go in here, change your call sign. All you do, and then hit, close out the settings and just relax. Your data is now going to populate the repository in the sky, and you've got a marker for when you changed your thing. That's the whole power of this. Okay. A couple things happen though. Fair warning. When you change your call sign, a couple things are going to happen. If you had a QRZ lookup, that /D, that /ACP, that /XYZ is going to break your lookup. Doesn't much matter, but you will get a little pop-up. Now back to this power level thing. This is not literally tied to your rig because WSJT-X has no idea what your power level is. The balloons that go up, they use this as a variable to indicate their power level or their health. They actually just change this as a marker. It's got nothing to do with their transmit level. It has to do with some monitoring, like telemetry. So you can also use this. If you don't want to change your call sign, no problem. Just change this as your marker. It's not quite as convenient because the websites that help you with the analysis, they're designed for call signs. They're not designed for changing in this data element. But you can still do it, just not quite as easily. But there's no reason to. Just change your call sign. Okay. What's Whisper look like? I don't really care. I just wanted to show you what it looks like. We know it's very skinny. If you see it on the waterfall, that's it. That's Whisper. 6 hertz wide. It's narrow. Full disclosure. So I thought, this is great. I'm going to be able to find out which of these two antennas in my case I have, or if I should use my ATU or not. I'm going to find out if that matters. Finally. Why do I care? Because maybe I don't need all the infrastructure over my house. Maybe I can get rid of some gear and simplify. Every time I add another dial or switch, it gives me another chance to screw something up. So simplification is always good for me. However, it's not easy teasing out a difference in this hobby. HF propagation varies enormously on its own. And I'm listening to some POTA guy talking, and he said, hey, Don, within, 5 minutes, within 1 QSO, I will be receiving some guide S1 to S9. That much variation during a QSO. I'm thinking, well, holy cow. I'm trying to tease out one little unit, and you get these enormous units of variation, so like good luck trying to find some small difference. Here on the right, I just wanted to let you know that there is a lot of variation in call signs. This is what people are doing to, change stuff and keep track of it. So those are the longest call signs, and on the right are the shortest. Okay, so you've done this. You let your system run for a while. And by the way, you can let it run on transmit and receive. I'm not talking about unauthorized, unattended operations. I leave that up to you. But Whisper will run in receive-only mode or receive and transmit mode. So both are great. I leave that up to you. You let it run. You change your call sign. You let it run. Now you're ready. What do you do? What's the payoff? Okay. just remember one little search term, whisper.rocks. You don't have to remember any of this. Just remember whisper.rocks and just Google whisper.rocks. Don said whisper.rocks. Okay, you got it. It's going to bring you up to all these fantastic resources. So let's go take a look at them. Here's an example of charts that will be generated for you. All you do is make sure that you send your whisper out. All the receivers are going to be working automatically and tirelessly on your behalf. No contribution required. And you're going to use the website's reports with your call sign, their analytics, and all the receivers all over the world. And you're going to see, how'd I do? Let's look at a couple of them. So this is, I've always heard that, the band goes long. Bands come in, bands come out. You can't use 80 meters in the middle of the day. That was all part of our exam, right? You had to know that stuff to pass your tests. Yeah. I never really understood it. And I figured, yeah, it's probably true generally, but I don't know if it's true for me. So this is, sorry, it's a little gray on the screen. This is, and you can see on the upper left-hand side, 160 meters. And I'm looking at my transmit because I'm putting my call sign in the right-hand window, which is the transmit window. And I'm looking at who received me. How was I received? And what's really interesting is there is this old death zone. Well, I can squirt out all the 160 meters I want. It's not going anywhere. So that was really, really interesting. And then here's on my receive side using my dipole. I have a big receive window except this guy who's very close to me. So okay, I get the theory of bands going in and out. Now I know that if I want to use 160 meters, I ought to hang it up at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. So I wanted to pick out one of our club members who doesn't know that I'm going to talk about him. I have not done any prearranging of this. Charles Allen, N4TVC. He will be listening to you. So if you send out whisper, this club member is going to use his hardware to hear you and report it up to the cloud. And then you get to use his data to evaluate your system. Perfect. Okay. So we talked about, anyway, this is just a test. You ought to be able to change the power and see the difference in how people had an ability to receive you, right? So I just kind of wanted to test this. Is that true? If I turn down the power, do I see a decrease in the number of people that can receive me or in their reported data? Turns out that it didn't work the way I thought it would. Okay, so this is the idea of there's a lot of chaos in HF, and we're trying to tease out a small difference. So this is full disclosure. Okay, so let's get back to our use case, 2 antennas. One is a very long loop that goes around my property. It's about 480 feet long, anywhere from 30 to 60 feet tall. It's a monster. And then I have a normal 80 to 10 meter off center for the dipole. And I keep them both up. My question is, do I need both? Everybody told me that a loop is quieter than a dipole, right? That's a conventional wisdom. It's in the handbooks. Okay, I got it. So let's go see by band if that's true. And I have weeks and weeks of data, of whisper data behind this. So there's the loop, there's the dipole. The average of let's see, lower receive noise. So this was me sending out reception reports, right? This is my ability to hear. So both of these antennas appear to have the same reported signal to noise ratio and receive on, and the bands are done by the first digit of the frequency. So that's 80, there's 40. All of a sudden you get a difference, minus 13, minus 15. So the loop reports a higher noise floor, right? Is this good or bad? The fact that the loop has minus 13 and a dipole has minus 15, which is better? You engineers, I'm making this up. I'm not sure. Which number is better, lower or higher? Well, we'll have to think about that. Same on 14 and the opposite case on 10 meters. Not a lot of differences. This is a very small difference. So the answer to here is, dude, why have two antennas? They both perform about the same and receive. So, if one gets brought down by the weather, maybe I just leave it down. Let's see here. Okay, so we talked about different ways to evaluate. One of the websites will give you the average miles of who heard you. Now, that's pretty cool. If you put up an antenna or do something to it, you'd like to know that it throws your signal further. All right, well, let's let Whisper tell you if that's true. So here's the averages of the people who received me by band. And guess what? That's also pretty darn close, with the dipole having slightly, a few miles more, 15 miles more. Pretty similar, but that dipole is more than holding its own against this long loop. Okay, here's a different visual representation. I didn't have to make this chart. The website does it for you. All I did was put in station 1 as my call sign with no suffix, because I'm normally on my loop, because I believe that the loop is just inherently superior no matter what the data says. So that's the base case. And then when I switch the antenna switch over to the dipole, I do click, and then I change my call sign to /D. And I let it run for a couple hours, and then when I'm walking by the room, I'll go back and switch it the other way, and then I alternate every other night. So that's where this data came from. And what we're looking at is the radiation pattern of spot counts, and there's a logarithm of it. I don't really understand what that is. If I wanted to study up, I'd click on that I button and it would tell you what they're doing here. But you can see the radiation pattern looks different. So the red one is my loop, and it looks like it's getting out further than the dipole. That doesn't jive with the average miles per band we saw. So we're looking at 40 meters. And then here's, what is the difference between these two? Oh, yeah, this is right. So that's the base case, the loop, and this is a dipole. No, I'm sorry. The both of them here, the base case and loop are here, and the base case and loop are here. We're going to spot counts. This is on transmit, and that's on receive. Because it's who heard me and who I heard. Anyway, there's small differences, but it's not night and day. And the website, I told you whisper.rocks, right? This one is whisper.live. So Whisper rocks, Whisper live. And there's something interesting here. General patterns are the same, but it looks like one antenna gets out better than the other. So there we go. There's some other really cool charts. I'm not a statistics expert. I'm a liberal arts major, but I think there's something useful in here for folks that like to plumb what the data means. We've got the loop on the left and the dipole on the other side. So there's a site that will subtract the signal to noise ratios for you and just show you the difference. Well, dude, that's all I want, right? I don't want to compare two charts. Just tell me what the difference is. And that is wicked cool. So here they've plotted the differences in signal to noise ratio. And it looks like somebody's getting a big difference out at 300 degrees, wherever that is from my house. You have a much better projection on one antenna than the other here. So I'll have to look at that and figure out where that is. It says the loop has an 8 dB advantage at 300 degrees. What do you mean 8? Well, these are the decibels here, and 8's on the perimeter, and the difference is there. And the math is loop minus off-center fit dipole. So that's kind of cool. So let's wrap it up. What are we even talking about? You're using WSJT-X, but not the evil FT8. You're going to go down to Whisper. You're going to have your normal call sign. You're going to do whatever you do for your base case. So that was the flow. And going back to a very simple website, what do? You're at Whisper Live. No, Whisper Rocks here. So you can pick your time frame, what bands you want, the call signs, and you can see I've got 2 here. You could have multiples. And then this is a beacon. And so if you want, why not just test your ability to receive a beacon? They don't move. They do the same power. So maybe that would be a very cool, simple use case. Forget everybody receiving you or you hearing everybody. Just concentrate on one guy. That could be cool. So that's what I did here. This is receiving a beacon. Same person. And the Haus-Steinfeld dipole minus 22 is the average signal to noise versus 20. I don't consider 22 to 20 a big difference. It might matter in some cases, but it was different. So this is a bunch of code. I'm not much of a code guy, but I know how to copy and change stuff. So this is a bit of code that they throw up as a sample. And it did something really cool, but for the wrong call sign. So I just went in and changed my call sign. And I changed the little date field. And then I dropped the code. And it was wicked cool. So if you're into that stuff, you can do that here. You don't have to. So that's it. That's the tale of using Whisper to identify any subtle little change in your station. And you don't have to ask people, hey, do you hear me better or worse? That's kind of cool. You run it at night, everybody's working for you. You just go to the website, put in your call signs, and let the website do the evaluation for you. That's pretty cool. So anyway, it's a way to evaluate changes in your station.